For starters, can you tell us your name and your position and role?
Yeah, my name is Aaryn Flynn. I'm the CEO of Inflexion Games in Canada.
Okay, so can you tell us, you were a speaker here at the Reboot Develop 2023. Can you tell us more about what did you speak and what was it about?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a speaker here at Reboot, and I had a chance to deliver the keynote. And I spoke about stories and places. When I started my career in the games industry at BioWareu, we were very focused on telling stories and bringing characters in to tell stories. But over time, I've tried to evolve my career in Inflexion. We're very focused on building places, so virtual places that players can invest in, can bring their friends in and do that, and create meaning for each other.
Okay, you're in the game development industry for quite some time now. Can you tell us the biggest differences and challenges of making games like 25 years ago and now?
Yeah, so I've been doing this almost 25 years, which is pretty crazy to say, but certainly when I started, everybody was extremely independent and unique, right? You know, we had no internet to bring people together. We were all learning from each other over mail and conferences, things like that. And then the internet came along and really had this incredible explosion of knowledge and let people share and understand each other better. And we got connected to more and more developers around the world. We started building friends around the world. And so even in Edmonton, Canada, where I'm from and where I built games, we didn't feel as isolated as we did then. And nowadays, of course, you know, we don't build our own technology as much as we use technology from places like Epic or Unity, things like that. And you know, we have developer relationships all over the world now. We don't just do it all ourselves in our studio. We talk to teams in Poland, teams in the US, teams in England, and it's just the entire landscape has changed for that.
Okay, what about before, like 15, 20, 25 years ago, there were not so many tools to make games. Now you have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So how would you say that does that make people, I mean, game developers better? Because back in the day, they need to struggle to make games, you know what I mean? And now it's so easy. What about the younger generations that already have everything on their hands today?
Yeah, great question. So I think game development is still extremely difficult. You know, I see a lot of developers here who I'm really proud to meet, and it's amazing to talk to them. And I talk to folks from all over Eastern Europe here who've been exhibiting. And you know, I think they're working pretty hard, and I think they're putting in a lot of time and effort, even though they are using Unreal or Unity, something like that. And I think that's a combination of our ambitions as game developers are always going up. We're always trying to do new things, always pushing ourselves, trying to push the industry. And then I think, of course, you know, whatever an engine provides or technology provides to you, you just then focus on the next thing after that. You focus on gameplay, you focus on polish, you focus on art, you focus on technical art and animation quality, all these things. And so the bar is always going up. And so I think we're just an industry born to struggle that way, and always our ambition's always going to push us.
Okay, perfect. So can you tell us more about your very, very popular Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights as well? Yeah. What was your role in those games?
Yeah, so you mentioned tools earlier, and that's what I did. So I was a tools programmer when I started. So I worked on the software, not that was the game that people played, but I worked on the software that our artists and our animators and our designers used to create content for these games. And so that was an exciting way for me to get into the industry. And one thing it did was it taught me a certain empathy and a certain understanding and a language of those artists and creators, right? I was a software developer, I was a programmer, and so all I knew was how to code and do this. And so learning and talking to them, I learned what animation was. I learned what it meant to write. I learned this because the better tools that I wrote for them, the more content they create, the better their content would be. And so that 2.5 years I spent doing that on Baldur's Gate 2 and Neverwinter Nights really, really created in me a deep respect for content creators and for people who can do things that I could never, ever possibly do in my life. Like, not even with AI tools can I do this stuff better. It's amazing what they can do.
Perfect. You started Inflexion, right? After all of this knowledge that you gathered, why did you decided to make Inflexion?
Yeah, so we've been doing Inflexion now almost 5 years, and I'm really lucky to do it. And we started it because I'd say of two reasons. One, because the industry is always evolving, and there was opportunities now afforded to people who've got 15 or 20 years of experience that weren't there. even 10 years ago, not to the same degree. And then secondly, because you get to work with your friends and focus on the most important things that you want to do. And in this case, it was building a world and building a new universe in the Victorian gas lamp setting. To us, that was the most important thing we could do. And to get to do that together, to get to do it with friends and former colleagues, and then bring in new friends along the way, that's just such an exciting adventure.
Excellent. Okay, so we are big fans of Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic.
I hear that a lot here. Lots of folks here are.
Yeah.
Lots of people have come to me and said, oh, you worked on Star Wars of the Republic. Wow, yeah.
Yes, yeah, there are a lot of fans here. Yeah. Star Wars is really popular, especially KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic. So can you tell us more about how and why did you implement the D&D system in that game?
Yeah, so we'd made several games to that point using the D&D system. We'd made second edition with Baldur's Gate, and then we made third edition with Neverwinter Nights. And so leveraging that in some ways was an ideal case for us. Our designers were very familiar with it. We knew how to implement it in the software, and so it took just a little bit of adjusting and a little bit of changing to make it work for Star Wars. So it was largely a combination of convenience and opportunity.
Okay, are you a Star Wars fan?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, he's
absolutely.
Star Wars fan, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a little bit, if you can tell us anything about Nightingale.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nightingale is a shared world survival crafting game. So shared world means you get to play with your friends in a cooperative fashion. And survival crafting means you do a lot of the typical gameplay there, which is, chopping trees down and building campfires and cooking your food and making your gear and things like that. And so we really liked that combination of gameplay because we thought it was a great way to make places. So in our world, in our universe, players travel through and go to different realms, we call them, and realms are magical spaces where they can look quite a bit like Earth, but then they've got elements to it that are rare and magical, things like that. And we thought that was a wonderful foundation around which to build places and to let players invest their time in. So in Nightingale, for example, your realm is your realm, and no one else can come to it unless you invite people in. And so even though it's a shared world game, you're not going to see other people in your realm unless you choose to have people in. But if you do choose to have them in, then you can have your friends there, and you can all build together, or you could go from there and adventure off somewhere else. And so we've made this foundation of systems that let players do that.
Well, that's really interesting. Do we have maybe some kind of date for that?
Definitely this year. Definitely this year. Yeah, I am 100% confident we'll launch it this year. Just not quite sure about the exact date yet.
Early access, maybe some date?
Yes, definitely early access. Yeah, definitely do early access.
Perfect. And for the end, can you tell us something for the young generations, for the young and upcoming talent? Some messages, some kind of advice?
Yeah, if you're a young developer anywhere in the world or here, for example, just keep working on your craft, keep reaching out, come to conferences like this. I've had plenty of conversations with folks and just talked about myself, in their shoes 20, 25 years ago. And hopefully that's helpful. I know it can be hard. I know it can be this. I had my hard days in the industry and doing this, still do. But I banged my head against the keyboard a number of times trying to figure out how to make something work. But you will get there. I've been hugely impressed by the smarts and the talent of the developers I've spoken to. You will get there. Just keep it up. Just stay strong.
Coming from a legend, I would say, from you, that kind of advice is really appreciated. Thank you very much.
You're too kind. Thank you, Baldur. Thanks.